Hello, my fellow humans, and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Matt DiGeronimo. Matt is currently the Vice President of Operations at Shermco Industries, a retired U.S. Navy nuclear submarine officer, and award-winning author. He has a career spanning military service, executive leadership, and entrepreneurship. Matt brings a wealth of experience in culture transformation and operational excellence. He's also a passionate mentor and public speaker known for challenging the status quo and inspiring others to lead with purpose and resilience. Welcome, Matt, to the podcast.
Wow, that's quite an intro there, Justin. Thank you. It was that was humbling.
You're very welcome. It was from the heart. I've actually been following you. I saw you were posting online some of your work that you've been doing. It's very creative. I followed some of the videos. I watched some of them. I'm like, wow. And it's very different from what I learned about you to what you're doing right now, from leadership to finding your creative side,
Yeah,
finding more about yourself, who you really are. Tell us more about you and your creativity that you're doing right now as well.
sure. No, I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
most of my career was spent in a very technical and high risk environment, right? So, from nuclear engineering to nuclear submarines, I was in electrical power production. After I got out of the Navy, I've been in manufacturing. Um, but I, like many people, are multifaceted, right? So from the time I was in high school and my whole life, I've always felt drawn to creative pursuits. But the way our world tends to work, when you're good in math and science, you as a kid, you tend to get more accolades and support for that than you would, say, a creative essay. And so, I was kind of, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't against my will or anything. I did like math and science, but yeah, that's kind of the where I went. But I've always been very fascinated with people and why we do the things that we do and who we are and how we become. And I will tell you, Justin, there's probably no better place to study that than on a submarine, because you're getting people at their best, their worst, and everything in between.
They have nowhere
And
to go.
that's right. I mean, there's nowhere to go, and you're with the same people for months and months and months at a time. And
Ooh.
you watch conflict, and you watch conflict resolution, and you watch people develop, and some people blossom, and some people shrivel up. And I was an avid sort of observer of that, and I used to take a lot of notes and do a lot of writing about things that I've observed. And I did. You're right. I mean, it's a pretty astute observation that you made, Justin. Is that most when I did start writing and I did start sharing things online, it was very sort of straight stick leadership type stuff. And I enjoy that because I do believe my profession is a professional leader, right? And I think that's a craft unto itself, and it deserves attention and thought.
Yes.
But I would say the last, like this year, this calendar year, maybe a little bit before that, I started to spread my wings a little bit in terms of just embracing, like, not necessarily what I think people want to hear, but the things that I think I have to say. And I don't think I've rehashed leadership stuff. Like, I think I do my best to come up with like interesting angles and things to say. But for the most part, I personally feel like the leadership market is saturated. If you want to read a book about leadership, well, there's
It's like it's lost its meaning almost, what it truly
yeah.
means.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and there's just so much of it, right? And
Yeah.
so I just was like, well, let me get out of that a little bit. And so I wrote a couple books recently. One is called Actualization, and the other one is called Suck. And both of them are just off the beaten path of what I've normally done. And they're really both about, more of a self-reflection about where we're at, where we want to be, and how who we are and who we become help inform that and navigate us through that.
I love your take on that, especially you're talking about leadership right now because it is saturated. So many people are talking about the same things over and over, what a leader can be, shouldn't be. And it just has made it almost like a commodity. It's just
Yep.
like, yeah, you're a leader. Okay, good for you. No one cares anymore. And it's just they took that creativity out of it. They sucked it dry almost. And it's like everyone says they're a leader now.
Yeah, it's interesting that I remember I had was the plant general manager of a electric power plant or a coal-fired power plant in Kansas City. It was my first real post-Navy job. And there was an intern there who was taking some classes in college and he wanted to interview me. And the topic of his essay was what makes a good leader. And I said, honestly, Andrew, like that question annoys me. Like, because it's like asking what makes a good light. Like, it depends. Like, maybe a floodlight, a spotlight, a flashlight, a candle, an LED light, a night light. Like, it depends what the situation calls for, right? And I think leadership is very similar. Like, there
Yes.
is no way to lead, and there is no best practices on leadership, right? It depends on who you're working with, what you're trying to accomplish, what your timeline is, what your priorities are. Meaning, is the priority to get an A+ in the project, or is the priority to develop your people? Anyway, my point is, there's leadership means so many different things to so many different people, and even the best leaders, it's all contextual. Every situation is different than the one previous.
I like how you said that. It's all like the situation does matter. Who you're leading, it does matter.
No, 100%.
Because like people always feel that, oh, one way works for every situation, one way works for everyone.
And that actually reminds me of when we had a brief conversation before this. We were talking about how complex the human being is, right?
Yes, that's a
And
point.
how everyone is much, much different and brings a much, different experiences, different talents, different abilities, different perspectives to the table. In fact, I would contend that, and I don't think it's debatable. I think a human being is an order of magnitude more complicated than any piece of equipment that anyone works on. And
True.
we would never give somebody 10 or more very complicated pieces of equipment that are each different from each other and say, hey, yeah, go figure it out. You'll be fine. Right? Like, we would never do that. But yet we do it with people all of the time.
Yes, I love how you put that. It's true that I like how you said because we're such different people that like one thing that I preach is about not just leadership necessarily in companies or people, but leading yourself because that's really important. Learning about yourself, who you are, to lead yourself through your life for your family, for your friends, for your company. Because how you lead yourself is really important to how you portray yourself to other people. And like you said, every person is so unique in that terms. Every leader is unique as well. But I feel there's certain things that those leaders need to understand is that everyone's different. We have to find different ways of talking with those people and figuring out how to adjust our style to help those people that are under our leadership. And like we said,
Right.
we had our conversation. Like I use myself for an example. Like I fall under that neurodivergent category.
Mhm.
And I've had such issues over my years with other leaderships. They don't know how to approach me, how to communicate with me, and they just feel like they can yell. And if I don't understand it, they yell some more, they don't get it. And it just doesn't work that way. So I'm kind of like anti-authoritarian when it comes to that type of leadership for
Sure.
that reason.
Yeah, and that's understandable.
I like to understand more about your creative stories, your writings. I know you come from a world of leadership, 9 to 5, and that can kind of take away so much creativity from us and drain who we really are. They're like, how did you find your way kind of back to your creativity, to do your storytelling, your writing? Love to know that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's always been there. It just was a matter of finding the confidence and the bravery to share it.
Ooh.
Because, like, as a retired Navy guy and an executive, like, I can put things on LinkedIn about leadership, and it's it is what it is, right? I mean, like, there's no one's going to say, what is he doing? But if I write an article on LinkedIn about actualization and becoming the person worthy of your goals, people are like, what's he
What?
doing? Right. And so I was, I'm human just like everyone else, right? I mean, I don't
Yes.
like to face criticism or, feel like I'm embarrassing myself. But I think somewhere along the way recently I said, hey, because these books that I just mentioned before, I've been working on them for years. So it's not like something I just created, but I just didn't really have the confidence. Confidence might be the wrong word. I'm very proud of what I wrote and I knew it would help other people, but
Some of it's very amazing from what I've read. Yes.
I just wouldn't feel I didn't feel like comfortable in my own skin presenting like this is Matt DiGeronimo, right? Because it's, I'm 51 years old and I've spent a career of, being a particular type of speaker, writer to, audiences, and then to just kind of go off the beaten path. But it's more consistent with what I'm passionate about. For example, just I don't mean to be too self-promoting here, but I'll just show you a
No
picture of
worries. Go for it.
Actualization, which is a book that I wrote recently, Becoming the Person Worthy of Your Dreams. So this book, the seed was planted after my divorce. So I'm married now, but it is my second marriage. And after my first marriage, I did a lot of self-reflection, as is often the case when we have a major life event. And I read something that said, stop looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right and start becoming Mr. or Mrs. Right.
Heard that. Yes.
And that just that hit me and it stayed with me and it planted a seed which subsequently led to that book. Because what I have come to believe is that most of our what we call goals are are surface level, they're almost self-soothing to us, meaning it's not really about who we are. It's about things that will make us feel okay or better.
It's like
Um,
egotistical at
yeah,
points.
a little bit. I mean, and I know, trust me, I have them. I'm sure you have them. We all have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I don't think I know there's a deeper layer there, right? So, for example, maybe, if we're not meeting our goals, maybe we don't need smaller goals. Maybe we need to be a bigger person, right? So
Ooh.
the idea that like, well, hold on, like maybe you need to grow into your goals, like become the type of person who would naturally have those things, right? So I'll use myself as an
Oh,
example.
I love that.
I'm not particularly shy of admitting that my goal is to become a full-time, a professional, and perhaps acclaimed nonfiction writer, right? That's what I want to do. But I got to be careful about how I define my goals, right? So if I said my goal is to be a New York Times bestseller, that's my lifelong goal. Well, what happens if that happened? One of these books hits it big, and then tomorrow I achieved that. Am I going to feel fulfilled? Am I going to feel like, oh, I did it? I don't think so. I think it's more about what really makes us feel fulfilled is the journey of becoming the person worthy of carrying the weight of our goals. Because I don't know about you, Justin, but I've never accomplished something where at the end of it, it didn't feel like a little bit of a letdown, where like you get there and it's like, that's it.
I've
Like,
been experiencing that a lot lately. And from what you just said, that when I realized when I let go of the end goal and just let myself enjoy the journey, it felt more human. It just felt more relaxing. Like I took so much pressure away from myself to become something that I don't really want to achieve or go towards. It was just different. It feels different. I hear that.
yeah, and it's about just being I mean, forget the
Yeah.
achievements. I mean, and I trust me, I've been very achievement driven my whole life. As a kid,
Same.
whether it was grades or sports or whatever, like achievements gave me external validation and made me feel good about myself. And, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And it's taken me decades to unlearn that, right? there's a funny story, and I may screw it up a little bit, but this business executive goes on vacation to this we call it a Caribbean island, and he's watching the fishermen, and this one guy in particular, he comes out to his boat around noon, kind of fiddles around on his boat, goes out for a couple hours, comes back with all this fish. He's pretty much done for the day at like 2:30, and this executive's like crunching numbers in his head and thinking like, hold on, like if this guy could triple the number of trips that he took, he could triple his revenue, and he's kind of doing the math on the margins and this and that. So finally he walks up to the guy and he has this conversation, and he said, and then the guy says, okay, well, if you were me and you did that, why would you do that? He goes, so I can make a lot of money. And he said, yeah, okay, so once you made all that money, what would you do? I was like, well, I'd probably move to a Caribbean island and just kind of take it easy and fish whenever I wanted and just enjoy my life. And the fisherman says, well, that's what I do. So like, like,
That's some real stuff right there. I feel that.
right. So like so when I think of like what does a full-time proclaimed or well-known author do? Nothing stops me from doing that. Right? I'm on a podcast with you right now.
Yes.
I write every day. I talk to people. I think about things. I make notes to myself. And it's like, well, isn't that what an author does? And if you're doing that, well, then congratulations. Just keep doing it. And if you need more commercial success, chances are you keep working on yourself. I keep working on myself. That'll come. When? Who knows?
Well, I love how you
Anyway,
put.
that's what that book is about. It's kind of like a roadmap to shifting gears mentally to shift our focus from the external things that we're attempting to achieve to more of the internal growth that we that really is the engine of our personal growth, and knowing that your external goals will come. They'll be the consequence of that.
I have to check out that book now because that, from what you just said, it all goes together with my journey that I've been on.
Is that
And
right?
like a lot of people are like that too. Like, the journey is so important. I'm learning. I just learned like how you're talking about how you're trying to achieve things. I just understood this within maybe the last 6 months to a year. I had to be validated to do this, validated because of the job I work for, validated how much pay I'm getting. And it's just like I had to go through so much healing and change to really look inside me and see, why am I doing things? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is the reason? And for me, I know it's not for money, so I got to figure out what else it was for. And I found that the reason was for purpose. And I feel like that kind of goes to what you were just saying. You have a purpose, and you stay on that journey of your purpose. I feel like things just come together for you, but you have to find that, not validation within yourself, but that purpose within yourself. So you just
Yeah,
have
no,
to be clear on that.
that's well said. And part of the book um, is about maybe actualization in its purest form is just about us deciding what game of life we are playing, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So like right now we kind of play this weird game that we were born into. Some of the rules make sense, some of them don't. We don't even know all the rules. Everything is determined by other people or previous generations. It reminds me of being on this like a massive sized playground and seeing like thousands of kids playing this very complicated game, and you get onto the playground, you don't know any of the rules, so you're just watching people, right? And so it's like it looks like that fence is home base, and it looks like over there we're supposed to pretend the floor is lava, and here you got to run around this pole 3 times. And so to get along with everyone and to fit in, that's what we do.
Story of my life.
But at some point it's like, well, hold on, like why don't I decide what game I'm playing, and I will base my success or failure on how I define the game, right? I mean, what is the objective? What are the rules? What are the constraints? How do we keep score? I'm not saying you need to keep actual score to your life, but you know what I mean? Like, what is, um, and I think that is really actualization, right? Because you're defining this life for yourself instead of like, yeah, you can win that game on the playground with all those crazy rules if you try hard enough. But what's that going to feel like when you never really knew what the hell was going on to begin with? You
Ooh.
just went along you just went along to get along.
You really just put into perspective and way better words something I've always said my whole life, which is no matter what age you are, or what you've gone through, or how you grew up, or the things you saw, the things you did, it comes to a point in your life, no matter where you are, that you have to make a choice, a decision to be better and do better, to become the person that you want to be, no matter what external stuff. But you put down to such better words that I've been looking for almost my whole life. That was just great right there. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, it's hard to be yourself when you're on the
Yeah.
playground playing this game that you don't understand and that you didn't participate in developing. When there's nothing that stops us, nothing except us. Yeah, and
Yes.
maybe some sideways glances from friends and family, like, "Hey, what is Justin up to?" Or "What's Matt
You
up to?"
should be doing this.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm doing my thing. I'm not. I no longer recognize the concrete as lava, and I no longer recognize the fence as home base. And I got my own set of rules, and that's what I'm going to do.
And I feel that's how you find the most happiness in your life because you're playing by your own set of rules. Everyone else is still trying to figure out the rules of others, and they're just not getting anywhere. They're not really moving forward as much as they would like to.
Well, and
That
that's interesting that you say that because
yeah.
another sort of topic that I explore in this book is something called internal integrity, right? So, and I'm not the first person to write about it, but I do think that there's three elements of our life that have to be in harmony. And if they're not, it creates all types of angst in our day-to-day life. And those three things are who we are, who we want to be, and what our actions are. Right? If we
Ooh.
can get all three of those things to be aligned, we're going to feel pretty good about ourselves. But when we kind of have this idea of the game that we want to be playing, this idea that everybody else is the game that everyone else is playing, and then trying to it's like trying to catch two rabbits in the backyard at the same time, right? Like it can't be done. But yet we try it anyway. And so it just frustrates us. And then sometimes it leads to self-sabotage, right? So
Ooh.
if you think that you want this, but you really don't, or it's somehow at odds with your internal self, and then we wonder why we self-sabotage ourselves. Well, because we got you know not to downplay the actual ailment of schizophrenia, or bipolar, but we actually have multiple personalities in our brain, right? I mean,
It creates so much noise.
yeah.
That actually hit really hard right now because I went through that and I'm still going through that a little bit. And I'm sure other people out there are. They're not sure what they can do. And they're just kind of stuck in the so-called rat race or the hamster wheel. And they're just walking into a wall over and over and not understanding. You can turn left or right or up or down. You don't have to just keep going one way like you always have been.
Yeah, I think most of us, myself included, for years, live life a lot like a ping pong ball amongst other ping pong balls, right? So,
I like that.
we're sent off on some table with all these ping pong balls and we're just bounced all over the place. And, we're not alone. It's happening to everyone. And it's like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And nope, no, you're not. Bang. No, you're not. And so, mentally, I have in the last several years tried to say, okay, well, how do I build myself as like a steel ping pong ball, so that when you roll it,
Ooh.
everything else just bounces off of it, but I know where I'm going. And it's not easy, and I'd be lying to say if it's been some sort of easy button, because it has not been. But
You find it, let me know, please.
all right, I will. But I do think that process of thinking about that and saying, hey, if I wasn't if I wasn't impacted every day by all these other competing, um, interests, priorities, responsibilities, where would my ping pong ball be going? And what can I do to at least minimize, the amount of bouncing around that I live with.
Damn, that ping pong analogy, man, that almost hurts a little bit. Because I remember myself growing up and like I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. I'd have so many jobs, work for so many different companies. I'm like, okay, I like technology and I like customer service. I'm just like bouncing all the way around. I feel like other people do that when they're young too. But I can't say young because you could be 20 doing it, you could be 50 doing it. I see it
Yeah.
every day. And you just don't know where you want to go. And it's just like this, you're thrown into this chaos. And you just like almost like have people have anxiety, depression because they're just fighting and all those other ping pong balls and all that energy is feeding off of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. I'm gonna never remember that now. Whew. I know we were talking earlier. You are on some social sites. I forget the name of it, but you're doing some. I saw the videos you're doing also. Can't
Yeah.
remember the name of
So
the site right now.
yeah, right now I'm on Substack.
Substack.
It's a
Yes.
great platform for writers and readers to meet each other. It looks and feels a lot like any other social media platform, but it's a pretty special place. I don't know if this is the golden age of Substack and eventually it'll deteriorate into every other social media um, uh, end state. But right now, it's a very supportive place. I've found a lot of fellow writers, and I found a lot of people who are interested in reading what I have to write, and they've been very supportive. So I write a publication on Substack called Beyond Platitudes.
Yes, I remember visiting there. It had a vibe to it. There was something that was just so human about it. Just connecting with people on there. As I watch you, I saw the comments, how they're interacting. There's just something that we're missing a lot. We're so engulfed in our AI and technology and leadership, that we just kind of forget about that creativity and connecting with other human beings. And we can be ourselves. It's okay to be ourselves. But so many of us are not okay with being ourselves. We're hoping
Yeah,
one day people will find that way.
yeah. No, I agree with you that it's about being ourselves and looking for an environment where we can be ourselves. Um, but I also think that social media in general has done so much to damage our sense of ego or to amplify our sense of ego, I guess is maybe a
Dating
better
apps
way of
too.
saying it. It's like me, 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 right? And so, even and everyone's different, and I'm not trying to put everyone in the
I
same
feel that.
basket, but like, influencers and people who want to make money on these sites, like it just seems like even when they comment on other platform or other people's stuff, they're really doing it to bring attention back to themselves, right? So
Yeah.
on Substack, what I've really dedicated myself to is just every day I just ask myself, am I giving more than I receive? Right. So
Ooh.
am I really reading someone else's writing and not just writing a comment that says, like, oh, nice post, check out my post, but instead, like, really digesting it and thinking about it and writing something meaningful in response and maybe reaching out to the author, telling him that I really enjoyed it, and then recommending that author to the people who are following me. And just, every day, just asking myself, am I giving more than I'm receiving? Because I think it might have been Zig Ziglar who said, the quickest way to get what you want is to make sure everyone around you gets what they.
I feel that 'cause I find myself in that trap all the time. People say I'm very authentic in the way I do things. But I find myself being inauthentic where I'm going online, creating posts, trying to drive a business. But sometimes it doesn't feel, it feels weird.
Yeah,
But if I engage in conversation like this on a podcast and just really talk with people, it feels fucking wonderful. It
yeah.
feels really true and meaningful. So I feel that it's almost like a disconnect. I'm trying to find my way in that to kind of navigate it and really figure out how I want to fine tune things.
And I think it comes down to whether we think that the size of the pie in life is fixed or growing, right? Because I think when we think it's fixed, we get into this mindset of limited constraints where it's like, well, if I don't get mine, someone's going to get mine, and then I'm going to have not going to have mine. So
Yeah.
then, whether we're on social media or building our business, we gotta get. But if you think that the pie is infinite or big enough to expand for everyone, which I do,
Yes.
it relaxes you a little bit because you could say, all right, well, I'm not competing for X amount of dollars or shekels or whatever with everybody else.
Gold bullion.
Yeah, all right, yeah, I'll get mine. Just again, it's about the journey, though, right? Like, do you really like? I think some people convince themselves that, hey, I'll be nice and I'll be charitable and I'll be easygoing after I retire, right? I'm going to make my money, and then I'm going to be this other person. And it's like, well, no, you're not. Like,
Mm-mm.
you know how much work it takes to become the people that we already are, and nothing, it's kind of like that fisherman story, right? Like, nothing's stopping you from being that type of person that you want to be right now. Nothing.
I agree. I see that so much, like in my space. I'm sure other spaces, they're trying to connect with people, especially in like technology and stuff. They're very like, oh no, you're gonna take my customers. I'm like, and I just learned a very powerful word called abundance recently, which goes with what you just said. And it's just like, it's crazy when you're trying to connect with people, but then they're kind of have the opposite way of connecting with you, and it's like you're butting heads, and it just creates this weird energy out there.
Yeah, and I think usually, not always, but usually that comes from a place of fear in others, right?
I
They
think
just,
I feel so.
they have some underlying or unresolved trauma that creates this sense of fear in them that, again, it's like
Yes.
the happiness is somehow limited to X amount for the whole world. And if Justin comes along and I do something to make him happy, then I got to give up my own happiness. And it's just not true.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's kind of one of the reasons why I started this podcast. It's to kind of help people like that out there who are not in that abundance mindset, but in that fix, to help them heal, help have these conversations, and help them see that no matter what industry that you're in, like me in cybersecurity, for example, and we're so technical, but we can't really talk to other human beings that don't know how sometimes. I started this to help bridge that, have these conversations, make things more human, make more things connecting. Because the more conversations we have about this, like we're having with you, which has been absolutely amazing, just having these and putting the right content out there, having the right conversations, those really, I feel, will help people. Maybe if it's just like one or two people, that's great. One person is amazing. Two is phenomenal.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
related to that philosophy of starting small, I think you can extrapolate that to our individual efforts. I think, when we start talking about being more human and connecting with people and being more in touch with what we want and, those types of things, we tend to like get pretty intimidated pretty quickly with the amount of work that needs to be done.
Sure, you're
Meaning,
telling me.
if we're, let's just say, some figurative scale on 0 to 100, and we find ourselves on, let's just say, step 12. It's very natural and it's very common to see people standing on step 12, looking up at step 100 and thinking like, I can never get there. And it's like, dude, you don't have to get there. You just have to get to step 13. That's
Ooh,
it.
I feel that so hard.
And then once you're at step 13, celebrate, have some ice cream, take a breath, pat yourself on the back. Yeah, and then ask yourself, what do I have to do to get to step 14? So, and to me, like, I will tell you, one of the best physical shapes I've ever been in. I had let myself go for a couple years and was determined to get back in shape. And I was on this kick of micro habits of, just doing small things. And so instead of having some blown, like, large plan of going to the gym 6 times a week and making my food on Sundays and weighing things out and that
Yeah,
kind
what
of
kind of crazy person does that?
yeah, I know. Well, hold on. Let's get so but you can get this, but if you're not there, that's kind of like
Yeah,
being at step 100, right? So
true.
if you're not there, it doesn't mean you can't get there. It just means that you're not going to get there overnight. And so what I in this particular instance did was I made myself a promise and I put like a big calendar up that said I would go 100 days and every day do at least one push-up,
Ooh,
which is like the most achievable thing on the planet, right? But
little wins.
when you're down there, you don't do one push-up. You do 10 push-ups or 15 or 2 or whatever. But then when you get up, your heart's pumping some blood a little bit, and you go to the refrigerator and you grab a water instead of a soda. And now you're a little bit more hydrated, so you sleep a little bit better. You wake up in a slightly better mood. You have a slightly better day. Like it's all compounding, right? And I
Yeah,
think that that's not true. And yes, and you could so you get to step 14, you get to step 15, and then you find yourself a person who's going to the gym every day with a very disciplined approach to nutrition. Like all that's great, but if you try to do that when you're very far away from it's just overwhelming and it intimidates people, and then quite frankly, it usually results in pretty quick failure. And
yes.
I think you can extrapolate that to almost anything that we do. Like we romanticize, and it might come from movies, right? Because in movies, the main character never just gets a little bit better. The main character gets a lot better and very quickly because there's only an hour and a half to tell the movie. But but that's not it's not the real world, right? In the real world, the best that we can hope to do is just get a little bit better each day.
I love that because it kind of reminds me of baby steps.
Yeah,
Just one step at a time. Like I found myself in that a few years back, just trying to go from step 1 to step 90. Like, come on, why can't I do this? Why is this so hard? Because like how you said, building those steps up, but then as you build them, that foundation stays stronger. If you try and skip ahead, that foundation kind of crumbles. You didn't go through step 5 or 6. You just
that's
wanted to
right.
skip ahead. And I've learned that, but it took me 2.5 years to learn that, and some death in my life. I had to die literally to learn that,
I
unfortunately.
remember you shared that. That's a crazy
Yeah.
story.
Sometimes we have to go through crazy things to fucking get it.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with a lot of entrepreneurs and people. There's something intense happens, and they're like, okay, I get it now. I understand what I have to do.
And oftentimes the things that are difficult just flat out suck. And that's the second book that I wrote, which is called Suck, which is just just accepting the fact that suck is always on the bus of our life. Like it's never going anywhere. Like I think I remember going to a Cubs baseball game, and my oldest stepdaughter had the guy behind her accidentally spilled some beer on her, right? And she was really upset about it. And I remember talking to her afterwards saying, like, if it wasn't that, it would have been something else, right? Like
Don't cry over spilt milk.
yeah, it would have been, you would have, if it wasn't that, you would have got hit by a foul ball. If it wasn't that, maybe you slipped and fell. If it wasn't that, maybe we couldn't find the parking space. If it wasn't that, maybe the car didn't start. If it wasn't that, maybe, I mean, every time you leave the house, there's always something that sucks. And so instead of being surprised by it and trying to avoid it, sometimes we just have to embrace it. Like that's part of life and it's part of the beauty of life. But when we're doing something new and we don't like this, so for example, if I'm writing something and it sucks, like I know that, but that's okay. Meaning I have to remind myself that, I often think of like the mustard bottle, like the squeeze mustard bottle when you first use it and all that like liquidy stuff comes out. Like that's the suck. And you would never say like, and put it back on the counter and then say, I'll try that again in another month. This sucks. I'm not doing this. And then you wait a week, a month, and then you come back and yep, same thing. Like, this sucks. What am I thinking? I should never try. You gotta get through the suck. There's a certain, whatever we do, whether, I've never danced a second in my life, but if I wanted to become a dancer, I'm going to suck at it for a while. But it's finite, right? It's X number of hours that I'm going to suck. So you can spread that out over your lifetime, or you could just get through it. Like if I'm going to suck for 100 hours, like, okay, let's get on with it. Let's suck. If you're going to suck for 100 pages, like, all right, well, get writing, get it out.
Oh, I feel that because I started my business, for example. Everything sucked. I didn't have the skill. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand how to reach out, how to talk to people. There's so many things I had to learn to stack upon each other. I sucked at it. I'm like, this is frustrating. How do I have to do this? And I realized as an entrepreneur, the whole thing about being an entrepreneur is when you go through those things, kind of like you said, is you have to learn how to get around them, how to build yourself up more, and just do those things. And you keep doing those things, you put the work, the effort, and the time into it, you get better. I like how you put that movie, you compared it to movies. So I feel like I felt that the other day. I see that a lot with other people. We see things in movies and we just like, oh, they did it so fast, why can't I? It's like almost we have to remove that mentality. We have to kind of retrain our minds and the way we do things to kind of get past that. We're raised in so many different ways. We're told so many different things, how to do things, but it's not really the right way to do things, the right way for you to do them.
Yeah,
No?
and it's also it just doesn't check with reality. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at Michael Jordan being cut from his high school basketball team, right? Um, and the list goes on. Like you can't find anyone who was just this Superman who was born with this raw talent and then just went on to conquer the world. Like there's no such thing. Even people who are claimed overnight successes have usually been working their asses off for the last 10, 15 years.
Yes.
So, it's just like, Michael Jordan isn't the greatest basketball player of all time. He's the greatest basketball player that never gave up. Like there's probably some guy that you and we don't even know his name because he gave up when he was cut from his high school basketball team, who probably would have been much better than Michael Jordan ever was, right? And I'm not going to call Ernest Hemingway the best writer of all time because he's the best writer who didn't give up. He's not the best writer. He's just the best one who didn't give up. Like I can't think of a single. You're a podcaster. Look at Joe Rogan. I mean, how
Yes.
many years has Joe Rogan been on the air? And just the last couple of years, he's become a household name. But I mean, he had his podcast for what, 15 years or something like that. I mean, he's been on forever.
People give up too easily. Like I've heard that when people are almost there, you just gotta go a little bit further, put a little bit more effort in, but then they stop, and then that's it. I mean, one of my coaches told me recently that like for like marketing and when you're reaching out to people, it's so many people aren't doing anything that if you just do 0.001%, you're doing way more than most people already,
That's
and
a
that
great.
made such true to me.
Well, 100%. And I think that very much related, if not the same exact thing, is that if it was easy, it would actually be worse because the competition would be so much higher, right?
It's not
So,
easy.
like if there's so many people that just say, screw this is too hard. And really that should be good for us.
Thought many times about giving up and quitting when I started. I was like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? Why do I keep doing this so much? Why am I here? But then I had to remember the purpose of what I'm trying to do and help other people with. And that kind of helped me personally kind of push a little more, push a little more. And I'm
Yeah.
in this groove. I built that discipline now. It's no longer about motivation. It's more about discipline, having that discipline in place so I can keep building upon that.
Yeah. And and I think discipline, I follow you 100%. But I think that to some people, not everyone, but to some people, discipline takes on this negative connotation of like, oh, geez, you want me to get up at 4:30 in the morning and take an ice bath and then eat some crap I don't want to eat? And it's like, no one's talking about that. I mean, you can if you're so inclined, but what we're really talking about are your habits. Like, what do you do day in and day out?
Yeah.
And they don't have to be huge, but they have to be working towards some goal.
Building that journey. 'Cause on that journey, like you said, building those habits up, create that discipline.
Yeah, let me show
It's
you a
kinda like
picture real quick. You mind if I share my screen real
yeah,
quick?
go for it, yes. Let me see, does it allow you to?
So look at this picture right here. This is what you were saying about. Can you see it with the guy
Yes.
who's just about to hit the diamonds, but he's walking away?
Yep, right there.
And that's exactly what you were saying earlier, right?
Yeah, you're almost there, buddy. Come on, don't give up.
But you don't know. You don't know. It's I've often said success is like chopping a tree down blindfolded. Meaning, like, what the right thing to do is. You just got to swing the axe, but you have no idea how many times you got to do it. But if you just keep doing it, even if you're blind, because that's success. You're blindfolded. Like, you don't know when the phone's going to ring and it's going to be your big break, or like, no idea. So we're
No,
blindfolded, but we know what the right things to do are. It's just a question of, are we committed enough to keep doing them without any feedback about how close we're getting to our target?
yeah, very well said. I love how you said it, without any feedback. I know for myself that I had to realize that it was more painful not to go forward and do this than actually going back and just staying who I was or who I am. It was so much more painful, and I had to kind of build that up. That kind of helped me realize that I'm going in the right direction. I have to just keep going, keep doing what I'm doing. And like you said, one step at a time, building upon habits, and just enjoying the journey as I'm trying to get there. But sometimes our minds don't always produce what we're trying to do. Like your mind's thinking one thing when you're trying to do something else.
Yeah,
So you kind of work against yourself. There's a kind of fight there. The
100%.
resistance.
100%. It's like they say, choose your suck or choose your hard, right? I mean, but
Yes.
going back to what I said, the suck is always on the bus, but just choose your hard. I mean, do you want to feel, regret sucks? Is that the suck that you want to feel? Or do you want to feel the temporary sting of not knowing what you're doing, or being embarrassed, or feeling like you could be rejected? Because that sucks. But there is no path where suck gets off the bus. Like he's on the bus to stay. He's not going anywhere.
Destination unknown.
That's right. But you can work with him. You can choose your suck.
Yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I had with my sister recently. She was saying something along the lines of, "Oh, rich people, something something." But I said to her, "Well, would you rather be poor and no money and don't know where your meal is coming from, or would you rather be rich and have money and know where your next meal is coming from?" It was just kind of that reframe. She was like,
Right.
"Oh, okay, I see." So that makes sense. Beautiful, very well said. Been a very good conversation with you, Matt. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I forgot it was a podcast. I was just the two of
Yeah,
us were talking.
I was so engulfed in them. I'm like, whoa, wait, where am I right now? Absolutely amazing. Definitely have to have you back on to have some more talks with you.
Yeah,
I
I'd
would
love
love
to.
that. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd love to leave the audience with? I know you said so many amazing things today, and like we want to kind of give the audience a little refresh. Oh,
Yeah, that's tough. I think at the root of everything that we've talked about, I think, and certainly at the root of some of the work that I've done recently, is honest self-reflection will get us very, very far. And everybody thinks they're self-reflecting. Like, I've never met a person who says, "No, I don't like to self-reflect." It's like everybody thinks they are.
never touched this stuff.
But if we go to, like, the dark places in our mind that we don't like to go to, right? It's those closets where sometimes we get close to it and then we say, "No, I'm not going to do that." And then I walk away from that closet. Like, I have it. There's places in my brain I don't want to go to. But yet, if we can combine two things, one is forcing ourselves to go there and exploring what's actually in our mind, because even if it's in a closet, it's impacting us every day. And then two, just throw conventional wisdom out the window. Like, I'm so tired of, like, people thinking, like, Oh, I got it. You know, my stepdaughter says, like, I don't want to take a third year of a foreign language, but they say colleges like it. I'm like, who the hell said that? Like, that's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like just stop it. Like, just and that's a silly example, but there's so many things that we do in life that we just do it because we think like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do.
Well,
So
college education is a whole different
oh, yeah,
subject.
certainly. But if we can combine an honest self-reflection with like maybe a better way to say challenging conventional wisdom is reevaluating our assumptions, reevaluating our biases, and saying like, hey, why do I, you know, when I feel this way, what assumptions am I making? Meaning, like, ask yourself the question, like, who said? You know, when they, you know, I've often said that should is the most dangerous word in the English language, right? Because we say like they shouldn't do that. It's like, but they did. Or my life shouldn't be like this, but it is. So saying should get you nowhere. So anyway, that's those will be my kind of closing remarks, if you will.
That's powerful. I love that. Should. We got to get should out of our dictionary.
Well,
Because you
there's a
can,
saying, right? And I don't know
will,
if I'm
you shall.
right. Well, there's an expression: I would not should on myself or others.
Ooh, I never heard that. I like that. I would not should on myself or others. I have to write that one down.
Yeah.
I like that. People want to reach out to you and also find your work that you're doing. Where can they reach out? Where can they reach out to you? And how
So right
can
now, Substack is the best place. So if you Google or you search Substack for my last name, you'll see Matt DiGeronimo and you'll see Beyond Platitudes. I answer all my emails at mjdgeronimo@gmail. So they can reach me there. And then on Amazon, if you just kind of search for my last name, I got 5 books there. These are the 2 most recent, Suck and Actualization. And if there's anyone in the market, this third book I published not that long ago to help people publish their first book. So if you're interested in publishing a book, it's called The Courage to Publish, but you feel like you're in your own way or it seems too hard or you're stuck on step 12 and don't know how to get to step 100, that book I wrote for you. So anyway, you can find those on Amazon.
And I'll definitely put the links to all those, including the Amazon and the books, in the show notes so they can get to them a lot better.
Thanks, Justin. Yes. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here again. Thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing wisdom and an amazing direction that I could even see.
No, you do a great. You run a great podcast. You run great questions. You're easy to talk to. Like I said, I forgot we were even recording a podcast.
That's why I found that a lot of people have been telling me they like it like that. I just kind of do it naturally. When I first started out, I was like, okay, here, question 1. But that doesn't work. Like, come on.
I've been on podcasts like that where just rapid fire questions, pre-written questions.
It's weird.
I
don't know how to react to them. I started stuttering and getting all weird myself. I'm like, well, I don't think it's just me. I think it's how this is all going. We'll definitely have you back on here again, Matt.
All right,
and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Matt.
All right, bye-bye.